Hi kids! We'll be continuing our discussion about the elements of art as seen in the cultural communities in the Philippines. So let's go back with the objectives for this lesson. The students will be able to identify the different elements of art in selected works. We will be focusing about space and texture. Second, apply the different elements of art in their own work. And third, adapt an indigenous cultural motif and turn it into a contemporary design through landscape art. Let's go back to the definition of elements of art. The elements of art are components or parts of a work of art that can be isolated and defined. And we mentioned these are the building blocks of art. It's like the ingredients of a recipe. And these are the things we need to put together to create an artwork. For this week, we will be focusing on texture and space. There are different ways to classify objects. One way is through texture. Texture is the smoothness, roughness, hardness, or softness of an object. It refers to the feel, the feeling of a surface when touched. It can be real objects or implied through different mediums of arts. So here are the examples of arts which showcase the different textures. There are two types of texture. One is physical texture and the other is visual texture. Physical texture involves the sense of touch. We touch and feel object to know its texture, like in sculpture and different artworks. For visual texture, when we use our sense of sight and try to figure out the texture of an object, this is called the visual texture. If we have already experienced an object before, we felt it, we touched it, we can easily identify its texture when we see them in a picture. For example, this sand. Is this rough or smooth? How about this artwork? Can you see the cotton there? Is that rough or smooth? How about this one? What do you think? Is this hard or soft? Alright, so for the last element of art, this is what we call space. And space is the area that's occupied by an object as well as the area around it. It gives a feeling of depth to the artwork. Look at the following images shown in the slide. These are the different perspective and different examples which space is considered. The overlapping of shape, the shading, and etc. The sizing. Look at this artwork. How does this artist show space? How do we know that the people at the front are closer to us than the people in the background? This is a great exercise in looking and in figuring out all the things the artist has to do to convince us that the place and the people are real. So there are different strategies that we can do in depicting space in arts or to identify the space in arts. First is position. The stuff at the bottom of the picture plane or the 2D space the painting occupies is closer to us, and the stuff at the top is farther away. Example, the three of these ones are background, middle ground, and foreground. Look closely at this picture again. By the way, this is an artwork from NAMI Art Gallery. So let's look at the different positions in here. So we have the first one is the foreground. The foreground here are the people working on the harvested rice. The middle ground is the rice field with the small people planting. And lastly is the background. The background are the mountains and the clouds. Other strategies that we can use is the size. The size, or the figures that are close to us, are painted larger than the figures farther away. Look at this picture again. And lastly is clarity. The figures that are farther from us are painted fuzzier and less detailed than the figures close to us. This is called atmospheric or aerial perspective. There you have it. Let's go to your activity. So here are the materials you need to prepare. First is Oslo paper or a cotton band, will do. Second, your crayons, coloring materials, color pencils, except your painting materials, and your pencil. Please use your crayons or color pencils only. We will be doing a landscape art. What is a landscape art? A landscape painting or drawing refers to an artwork whose primary focus is the natural scenery, such as mountains, forests, cliffs, trees, rivers, valleys, and etc. Here are example artworks of landscape art. As you can see, its focus is natural scenery or nature. So here are the instructions for your landscape art. First is you have to draw a landscape art that features a still and quiet life in the countryside or in your province. Second, use figures such as your mountains, plains, waterforms, landforms, trees, etc. Anything about nature. Third, you have to color your drawing using your crayons or colored pencils. And lastly, make sure that the foreground, middle ground, and background are shown in your landscape art. Sample work is here. So as you can see, the foreground, middle ground, and background is shown in the landscape art. Please do the same. And once you're done, you have to submit it through our Dropbox. Alright? So please be cautious and refer to our rubrics for your scoring or guide in doing your landscape art. That's it. Thank you, and I'll see you in our sync class.